If this isn't your first time stopping by the Seed Butter channel, you know how fascinated I am by analog horror. You'll also know that something I've tried to focus on a lot in recent videos has been showcasing different projects from different creators, emphasizing how the medium of art can be changed from project to project, but still deliver the same quality of terror. Today, we're going to be talking about a super cool project that I'm enamored by at the moment. As a huge fan of the IP that this project parodies, and obviously analog horror in general, this is something that caught my eye the instant that I came across it. Today's project won't showcase an incredibly unique art style for digital horror, or choice in how the art is shown off, but what it does have is an insanely unique take on a character who we're used to having presented as a good guy 100% of the time. The tropes of Batman have been well established over literally decades. For that reason, though there are incredible Batman stories, it's rare to see his character utterly transformed. And when that happens, it's frequently bound by some constraints by the creators who make these comics. But what we're about to see today is a completely new look at the character, coming from a fan and analog horror creator. Before I mention any more about this series, I want to let you know that you should 100% subscribe to the channel if you're interested in chasing down the lore of analog horror series when they pop up, especially lesser known ones. If you enjoy this video, I invite you to check out the rest of my channel, as I guarantee you'll find something there for you. With that said, I'm going to go straight into the guts of this project. Today, we're going to be following the work of Siltrix, a relatively new creator on the internet. Siltrix is working on an incredible project which began just 2 months ago, and is already showcasing a ton of content. It appears that they're working on their own parallel DC universe, of which at least The Flash, Superman, and of course, Batman are confirmed to exist. Though, as you may have imagined, given the theme of this video, they're not quite the amazing heroes that we expect them to be. We'll touch base on The Flash and Superman in this video, but this episode will focus entirely on the Batman content, as that's been much further expanded on the channel so far. As always, I implore you to first take a look at the content for yourself, so you can walk into this video with your own ideas before we talk about it, and so that we can help support the creator. With all that said, I'll give a quick reminder of the format, which is that I'll play each video and discuss it in brief, and then present several theories I have on the subject as a whole at the end. Sound good? Alright, let's get started with the first upload, titled The Bat Incident, 1959.
Attention, all staff at this time, just follow all lockdown procedures. There has been a disturbance in the roof of the building. The GCPD Gotham City Police Department and Arkham Security has been called to assess the situation. Follow all procedures for the following patients. Patient number 83357 alias Waylon Jones Killer Croc. Patient number 97567 alias Kirk Langstrom the Man-Bat. Patient number 72679 alias Dr. Pamela Lillian Isley, Poison Ivy. Patient 0, alias John Doe, the Joker. This alert will keep playing until the situation has been resolved.
The first episode really opens the series off with a bang, in my opinion. Though one can certainly criticize some mistakes in the presentation, like the constant spelling errors and such, it's definitely made up by the way the story is written. So let's quickly recap a couple of details. Something to note right off the bat, pun intended, is that this story begins in 1959, 20 years after the death of Bruce Wayne's parents, which of course kicks off his journey into becoming man. In this episode, we see an emergency broadcast during and some report from after what's come to be called the Bat Incident. There were 4 supervillains in containment at Arkham Asylum: Poison Ivy, Man-Bat, Killer Croc, and Joker. How they were contained there isn't quite clear yet. But on the night of April 26, 1859, on the 20th anniversary of the death of Thomas and Martha Wayne, Batman, whatever he is, came to take care of these patients. Sparing only the Joker, he absolutely slaughters the other 3, goring them and, crucially, removing what made them inhuman, such as their unique skin and, in the case of Killer Croc, eyes. He's described as moving in a way that makes him look crazy, muttering justice under his breath, and visiting the Joker before disappearing without a single trace. But when he does encounter the Joker, he doesn't hurt him, physically at least, though he does drive him further mad. What he could have possibly have said to the Joker, we don't know. There's a lot to unpack here, but for now, we're going to go ahead and cover the next upload. This video was a really fun one to watch. I did initially have some confusion with regards to what it actually is though. As we can see from the video's description, the entire thing is a message sent from Renee Montoya to Harvey Bullock. Given the title, I'm thinking these are Jim Gordon's notes, which were transcribed into the format that we see. But at some point they were corrupted, and perhaps intentionally, by the Bat, giving the message that we see at the end. Now, this doesn't quite make sense because we learned that the message was specifically intended for GCPD use, so why Batman would hack into it himself and address Gotham citizens is confusing, but for the time being, I'm not going to focus on what it actually is. We'll just let that slide. I want to make a few notes on what we actually learned from Jim Gordon's thoughts. Jim presents some new information about Batman, and he reflects on Bruce Wayne a year after the previous incident. He mentions superheroes and vigilantes in general, suggesting that he's not a fan of them, mentioning the Flash and Superman, and the bad that they're getting up to. We learn about Bruce, and specifically that he wasn't doing all too well, mentally, before going missing for a time. This is a pretty useful detail that'll help us theorize about what made Batman this way later down the line. We learn specifically from Ted Kord, another DC character, that Bruce wasn't taking care of himself, and had made up his own mind about how to restore order to Gotham. As you would imagine, it probably doesn't align with what Batman usually does for Gotham. Then, we get another really crucial detail. After Kord told this information to Gordon, the Kord building burned down, with every employee and presumably Kord trapped inside. I think it's implied here that Batman was surveilling the pair, and as punishment for Kord seemingly meddling with his plans and telling Gordon about Wayne, burned down the building in revenge. Once again, we see what really sets apart this Batman from every other iteration of his character. He slaughters people, including citizens of Gotham, indiscriminately to achieve his means. Something clearly isn't right with this Bruce. The next few uploads will highlight this even more.
Greetings, citizens of Gotham. Welcome to the GCPD's instructional presentation. The topic of today's presentation is on what to do if a loved one is missing. Losing a loved one is a troubling experience. Here are steps to take to ensure this doesn't happen. Step 1. Keep an eye on them at all times, especially children, so that they don't get away and you lose them forever. You don't want that to happen, do you? Step 2. Lock all your doors and windows so they don't go out. Don't let them make contact with the bat under any circumstance. It will harm you. 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 Harm you.
This next video is a little bit more brief and presents a clearly corrupted instructional tape from the GCPD. If it even is from the GCPD, because to me it watches like it's a joke, like some character in this universe wrote it to parody what was going on. Maybe not a joke, but someone trying to spread the word that the Bat is evil. This isn't the most informative episode, so we are going to push forward. The main thing to note here is that apparently Batman is kidnapping people. And then, of course, there's the corruption at the end of this video, including this unintelligible audio right here. This upload is potentially my favorite in the entire series. We've got this hastily put together video of scrabbled text from someone, who we'll talk about soon, which attempts to string together evidence of Bruce Wayne being the Batman. Whoever wrote this is pretty certain of their claim, bringing to the table a snippet of audio where Bruce apparently makes some sort of confession. In the audio, he mentions that his plan has worked and that Gotham will submit. Obviously, this audio is corrupted, which lines up with what the narrator mentioned, being that it was leaked and people aren't completely believing its authenticity. Perhaps this somehow leaked before Batman intended on getting it out there, meaning the plan hasn't come to be yet, but we aren't entirely sure. Now, with regards to who made this message, I'm leaning towards one figure in general, and that of course is the Riddler. Not only is this text very reminiscent of that from the character's writing style, especially from the recent movie, but the presentation lines up as well. We have someone who can discover something incredible but can't really communicate it effectively, sounding a bit like a madman, but someone who is definitely onto something. I think the Riddler may be a neutral or even good character in this universe, and in my mind, he definitely takes the spot for having figured this one out. The second figure I think it could be would be Tim Drake, although that's extremely less likely. It'll make sense pretty soon why I pointed him out, but for now, let's just move on.
Interrupt your current broadcast to bring you this message. There has been a significant increase in missing people in the following areas: Old Gotham, Miagani Island, Bleak Island. If you receive this message, you are in one of these areas. Keep all doors and windows locked, and don't let yourself or anyone leave your home by themselves under any circumstance. If you see any of these children or the Bat, call the police immediately. The missing individuals will now be shown.
The next video is another terrifying entry from the project. We see what starts off as an emergency broadcast from the GCPD, informing us that people are disappearing from a few areas in Gotham. It isn't long before we see who they are and learn that they're all members of the Bat family. Well, at least in other universes, as these people would all end up becoming either Robins or Batgirls or something. In this case, though, it doesn't appear as though they've all joined the family naturally, as in typical Batman stories. Batman must have been picking candidates for his family, for his own ulterior motives, or maybe just out of revenge, given the quote from the description. I imagine that he stalked these people for quite a while, determining them to be good Bat family candidates, and then simply snatched them out of the night. We are, of course, missing Tim Drake from this list so far. We're missing Damian Wayne as well, but that makes a bit of sense, as I find it less likely Batman would have had a son at this point. Later into the transmission, we're hacked, presumably by the Bat himself, as he shows what he did to the kids, and the video ends with a shot of Wayne Manor burnt down. Now, we're going to go ahead and move on to what is currently the final video in this project. In our longest upload yet, we see information compiled by Tim Drake, who investigated the Wayne Manor after it burned down. This is a great detail because in many stories, part of how Drake became Robin was that he was able to deduce Batman's identity and discover the Batcave, very much lining up with what actually happens here. Of course, what he finds is shocking. He discovers the Batcave and all it contains, such as the Batmobile, and curiously, detailed files about Gotham, including a list of names. All of the Robins are mentioned, and himself, but also a ton of other Bat family members. Stephanie Brown, Helena Bertinelli, Kate Kane, and Barbara Gordon, who are all Batgirls. Luke Fox, who becomes Batwing, Harper Row, who becomes Bluebird, and Duke Thomas, who becomes the Signal. All sidekicks to Batman in one way or another. And of course, there's Selina Kyle, Catwoman. Then, in a flash, Drake sees the victims, and though we don't get an amazing glimpse of them, something is obviously off. He turns to run, but on his way out comes face to face with the Bat, who just watches him as he bikes away. But of course, he'll be back. We've now managed to get through the current uploads in this amazing story, and now we get to my favorite part of all my videos, where we comb through the information here and theorize. There are so many DC characters incorporated into this series and just so many possibilities with where we can go from here, so I think you'll enjoy this part. Before I lay out theories, I want to address some points. In this universe, Bruce Wayne didn't recover from the trauma he endured losing his parents. Instead of channeling what he went through into becoming a hero, he became a monster. But deep down, he was still enamored at the thought of purging Gotham of evil. Batman, at this point, is clearly somewhat of an anti-hero. He's lowering the rate of crime in Gotham, we know that for sure, but at the cost of killing villains and kidnapping kids for some reason. And beyond that, based on what he himself says, it appears that he wants to rule Gotham, not just save it. Regardless of what actually happened to Batman, and no matter what theory or theories we pick, it seems like Batman's recovery from the loss of his parents was just non-existent, and perhaps that Alfred was never even in his life. He grew up much more sociopathically than in typical canons. Now, I have several elements of the DC universe that could, individually or in tandem with one another, explain some of Batman's behavior. So I'm going to lay out these possibilities in a random order, and then, at the end of it, give my opinion on which of these theories might be the most correct. With that said, let's move on to the first option. The first theory is going to seem pretty obvious to anyone who enjoys evil Batman canons, as this story has been one of the most popular Batman stories in recent years. I am of course talking about the Bat Who Laughs, who may be connected to this universe, or at least serves as an inspiration for this version of Batman. Now, I don't want to simply retell the story of the Batman Who Laughs, as that's not really what I'm here for, but it is one of the more interesting Batman stories out there, and I'll give it a brief rundown. In Earth -22, Batman and Joker exist in a pretty similar way as normal, but in one confrontation, Joker gets the leg up on Batman. He kills many supervillains in Gotham, as well as the entirety of the GCPD and Jim Gordon. He then paralyzes Batman and makes him watch as he goes to an alley, just like the ones where his parents were killed, and he repeats the process with a young girl. But instead of killing her too, he injects her with a serum that turns her into a kind of Joker. He also reveals that he's done this to other orphans in Gotham. Batman, enraged, kills the Joker, but as a final trick, inhales some toxin from Joker's body, which eventually goes on to infect and Jokerize him as well. This process turns him into one of the most dangerous characters in the entirety of the DC universe, as he possesses the intelligence of Batman but the nihilistic insanity of the Joker. Now, I think there's a clear inspiration here from the Batman Who Laughs. Obviously Joker is still alive, so we're not seeing this exact character, but there are some similarities. The Batman Who Laughs kidnaps and Jokerizes kids, which is very similar to what Batman is doing in this universe. Another interesting thing about the Batman Who Laughs is that he travels the multiverse finding other weaker but still evil versions of Batman, recruiting them into a small army, forming a legion called the Dark Knights. Perhaps what we're seeing here is a version of Batman who is turning evil before he had the chance to be recruited by the Bat Who Laughs, or during that process. I'm going to move on from this idea for now, but I do think that was a fun one to throw out at first. The next idea hails directly from the Arkham series. At the end of Arkham Knight, the final installation of the trilogy before the shamefully bad Suicide Squad game, a twist ending occurs after Batman initiates what's called the Nightfall Protocol. Technically, at the end of Arkham Knight, spoiler alert for the games and that series as a whole, by the way, we aren't 100% sure what happens. But what was generally theorized by the community before Suicide Squad came out is this. When Batman's secret identity was revealed, he entered the Wayne Manor and destroyed it, somehow saving Alfred and himself. What this allowed for him to do was kill the Bruce Wayne side of him metaphorically and just become the Batman. Then he continues watching over Gotham, but uses Scarecrow's fear toxin to further battle crime. Basically, the Suicide Squad game confirmed this to be true, and in that game, Batman actually became the Nightmare Bat. Based on the information we have so far, it doesn't seem like the Nightfall Protocol was activated, but it does seem like Batman could be weaponizing Scarecrow's toxin in this series. Then again, wouldn't entirely explain why he became the way he did, but it would explain some of what he's doing, and why Gotham fears him the way they do. Physically, this version of Batman doesn't seem to have all of the characteristics of the Nightmare Bat, so maybe we'll just keep this idea in the back of our minds. Besides the Scarecrow toxin and Joker serum, one of the more well-known drugs in the DC universe is Venom, and its deadlier synthesized counterpart, Titan. Venom is the drug that's used to make Bane as strong as he is, and in the Arkham games, another spoiler alert, Joker makes a more powerful version of this which can be used to turn anyone into monstrous and extremely powerful soldiers. Famously, he uses it on himself, becoming this version of Joker, but is again defeated by Batman. There's something clearly wrong with this Batman, and he's also incredibly strong. If he was able to literally rip apart Killer Croc by hand, this is a much more powerful version of Batman than we're used to. Not only that, but the Riddler, possibly, mentions that Batman appears to be on drugs. Titan doesn't just amplify your strength, but it makes you a monster. Monstrous behavior, super strength, and appearing disheveled and on drugs are a set of symptoms that those using Titan and this version of Batman run parallel to. So I think it's a very plausible theory to consider. That being that at some point, Batman became exposed to Titan, perhaps given to him by the Joker. Now, some things don't perfectly line up, as the drug does kill you eventually, for example, but maybe things are just tweaked a bit in this scenario. Maybe Batman eventually grew to love and crave the power, which is why he spared Joker, only visiting him to perhaps thank him and tell him about his future plans for Gotham. Another small idea I have is the Man-Bat formula. I'll make this extremely brief because it's basically the same idea as the last one, that being that an already sociopathic Bruce was exposed to the Man-Bat formula, which literally turns you into a half-man, half-bat. This would explain Batman's amplified strength and appearance, and how he was able to, for example, just disappear. He literally has animalistic qualities. Though not all of his behavior really would be explained by this, so I do just want to throw this out there to be considered in part with some of the other ones. The next theory interests me a lot more, though again it doesn't explain Bruce's behavior before this incident, just his strength and appearance. We have Cord Industries mentioned in one video, which is interesting because that doesn't come up a ton in Batman stories, so I do think it bears some significance. Cord Industries is the company from the Blue Beetle comics who try and decipher the Scarab, which eventually gives Blue Beetle his superpowers. The Scarab is an alien superweapon created by an ancient civilization called the Reach, which binds to a user and eventually takes over them, making them get the world ready for a Reach invasion, a lot like Omni-Man and the Viltrumites, for example. Now, Blue Beetle manages to use it for good, but there are versions of the story where a corrupted Scarab makes him evil. Perhaps while at Cord Industries, as it was confirmed Bruce went there, the Scarab bonded to him just like it did to Jaime Reyes in most stories. And now he's taking out supervillains one by one, starting with those in Gotham to prepare Earth for a Reach invasion. This theory, or at least the invasion part, does sound like a bit of a stretch, but the idea that Batman could have the Scarab is a possible idea. We're now going to move on to my most favorite theory yet, for its uniqueness, but also just its sheer terror. This final theory stipulates that Batman, in this analog horror series, is a vampire, just like the Batman from the Batman and Dracula trilogy. I won't summarize that whole series, as I haven't even read it entirely, but in the first book, Batman realizes that Count Dracula and a family of vampires are feeding on homeless people in Gotham. To defeat Dracula, Batman allows himself to be bit by a vampire to gain vampiric powers. He defeats Dracula, but at the expense of losing his humanity, as he's bit and drained of the last of his blood in the struggle. This kills Bruce Wayne, but allows Batman to endure forever as a vampire. The rest of the series documents him fighting and killing criminals, losing control of his power and finding himself again, but that's much further than what's required to understand this theory. When in vampiric form, Batman is incredibly strong, which would explain how he dispatched Killer Croc so easily. And beyond that, the physical changes would explain his appearance as characterized by the Riddler, and how he could disappear without a trace. He's literally turning into a bat. Not only that, but kidnapping people and turning them into, well, something, really fits in with the motif of vampires and Dracula in general. That's something that character does specifically. Though there's no confirmation that that's Batman's intention, I honestly refuse to believe that there's zero inspiration taken from the Dracula and Batman story with regards to this analog horror series. This is my favorite individual explanation because it just seems really cool. The idea of a vampirized Batman who's completely lost his sense of Bruce Wayne going crazy in Gotham is just terrifying. So now, we've got to try and string together some of these theories, but the fact is, it could be any one of these in any combination. Personally, I don't think we're ready to put any definite conclusions out there, but I think it's fair to say that any of these theories could, at least, serve as inspiration for the Batman in this series. But let's go back to what we do know. At the end of the day, no matter which one of these events could be true, it doesn't change the fact that something was wrong with Bruce long before the Arkham incident. He's not described as the charismatic Bruce we know from most Batman canons. It appears he didn't have Alfred to help him, and he never adopted his no-killing rule. That might be enough to explain why he's insane, but it doesn't explain everything. We can't ignore his physical strength, which makes me want to say that at the very least, some enhancing drug is in play, whether it be the Man-Bat serum or Titan. Something has to make Batman much stronger than he is usually. But then, why is he kidnapping people important to a traditional Batman? Well, to me, this shows that he possesses not just physical strength, but some incredible degree of intelligence. Or that he learned something which Batman doesn't usually know. This leads me to believe that he is perhaps a Dark Knight candidate, and the Batman who laughs told him who he's supposed to kidnap in order to better serve him. Or it could be that the Scarab somehow figured out that these people were the best candidates for helping Batman with his quest for Gotham. I mean, seriously, how would Batman know that these people are supposed to be sidekicks? Somehow, this Batman knows something he shouldn't. I think him knowing the people that will eventually become Bat family members and rewriting the future is the biggest tell about this Batman's power, and I truly hope that with future uploads, we'll figure out what exactly made him this way. Okay guys, I'm going to keep this conclusion super short. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. I love the series and I really want to come back to it, as well as investigate how the other superheroes play into this twisted DC universe. Make sure to check out Siltrix's channel and give them a thanks for creating this awesome content. Thank you for stopping by today, and before you leave, I want to invite you to join my Discord if you want to be a part of this community and help pick future video topics. And I'd also like you to like this video and hit the subscribe button so you can help support my small channel. I hope you enjoyed, and have a great night, everybody. Hey guys, Seed Butter here. Sorry for the unscripted interruption at the end of this video, but I just wanted to let you guys know that as I was making this video, and I apologize because it should have been out a lot earlier, I just had some complications with getting sick and traveling, but anyways, as I was making this video, we actually got 2 new uploads which were both really amazing, and one of which actually confirmed some of the theories that I talked about today. And the second one introduced an entirely new faction that I'm really excited to talk about in a part 2. So let this be a little teaser for the next episode. If you liked this one, we will definitely be talking about this series again. So with that said, I highly encourage you to go check out Siltrix's channel right now and catch both of these new uploads, and stay tuned, subscribe to the channel so you can catch a theory about them very soon. Thanks again, and have a good night.